Hey guys, we are back in the bathroom today, today we're going to go over Hebrews chapter 12, 1 to 13, and I'm going to let you read it together in your small group, and then we're going to come back together and jump right in, alright? So pause right now. Okay, welcome back. Good. Hebrews chapter 12, 1 to 13, okay? This passage I wanted us to go over today because it is something that I think we need to hear. It talks to believers who are enduring a lot of pain and suffering, the writer wants them to persevere and to hold fast to the gospel in the midst of their trials and their pains. And so I think it speaks into our day and age, our situation right now as believers, that we're struggling to grow in our faith, and for some of us, we're even wrestling with who we are as Christians. And so I think this passage speaks to us and encourages us and exhorts us and also rebukes us in the ways that we need to be. And so let me give you a little bit of context before we jump in. The writer of Hebrews is speaking to believers who are enduring persecution. Their material goods are being stolen from them, and they are really, some in the church are struggling to hold on to their faith. And in fact, some are in danger of leaving the Christian faith. And so the writer wants them to endure and hold fast to the gospel. And it's hard, right? The writer empathizes with the recipients of this letter, and he's saying, yeah, it's difficult to be a Christian. It is so darn hard at times, and yet let me encourage you. Let me exhort you to look to our Savior. And he uses this illustration of running a race, which is going to be helpful for us. Because at this point we're about a month and a half into the shelter in place. Many of us are feeling the pain of running this race of being a believer when we're apart from each other, and for a variety of different reasons, whether it's lack of community, laziness, lack of motivations, there's distractions. Some people have lost loved ones, and it's been hard to walk as a Christian because there's so much suffering going on. And for some of us, maybe we're ready to give up because it's been so hard. Yesterday I had 7 Zoom calls kind of back to back. And I'll be honest with you, today I sat in front of my computer for like 4 hours just zoning out because I had like a Zoom brain, and I had no motivation. I'm ready to just lay down and call it quits for this week. And the possibility of this shelter in place lasting even longer scares me because I don't want to do this, I'm weak, and this running illustration is helpful for us because this current stage almost feels like we're hitting that hill that just keeps getting steeper and steeper, and it's hard. Every step hurts, right? The muscles are screaming out. I'm having shortness of breath, and it's not because COVID or anything. I'm just out of shape, and it's like I'm ready to just lie down and just die. Like I have no motivation at times. And I think for many of us, that's how we feel about our faith right now. Right? We have no motivation to get up and see God and talk to Him. We're hurting in ways where we're thinking, I don't know if I have time for God, and I just got to deal with my own pains. And yet this passage is helpful because it points us to the fact that we can endure in our faith, and this is how. Right? And so we want to ask that question today: how can I endure this race of faith when I'm so tempted to give in? What can we do? So first off, the author tells us we need to lay aside all distractions. Lay it all aside. Look at verse 1 again. It says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us." Right? And so very quickly off the bat, the writer says, lay aside every weight, right? Everything that holds you down, anything that prevents you from running this race. And the question immediately comes to mind: who runs a race with weights? Right? That's stupid. Right? If you're running a race, you want to be fast. You want to be able to endure. You don't put on extra weight that will hold you back and slow you down. I did it before, not during a race, but during just training. I took my mom's 5-pound weights, for tone, not bulk, and I started running around Lake Merced, and I tell you, man, I was like less than a mile into it, and I was thinking, yeah, this would be so easy, and oh my goodness, the pain that was in my arms is unbearable. It felt like I had stone arms, and I was looking back like, oh, this is a mistake. What am I going to do? I have to get back home because I can't carry these 5-pound weights. I'm such a weak fool. And it was foolishness, right? If you're running a race, you're not trying to stop yourself or slow yourself down. You want to be able to endure, to keep going, and to put on extra weight is just dumb. And you know, this author is telling us it's not a sprint, but rather it's something of long distance. It's something that needs endurance and perseverance. That's why he says, let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. You need to be able to hold on and keep going. And a better illustration for you weebs out there, think about Rock Lee from Naruto. Why do you have weights on your ankles when you're fighting someone else? You take it off. You know, for the normal folk out there, why would you put on something that slows you down or prevents you from fighting as well or running as well as you can? And the thing is, this is not just a race where it's a winner or loser where you get a prize. It's winner, loser, winner gets to live, loser dies. That's how serious the race of faith is. You either win, and that is to be a child of God and to have our victorious King take us to his own Father, or that means to lose and leave the victorious King and side with the very ones who hate God and are destined to lose. It's that serious, right? You know, if you're going to run a race, if you're going to run this race, you need to gear up and dress appropriately and not put on anything that will hold you back. You don't put on a dress, you don't put on skinny jeans or flip-flops. You put on runner shorts and runner tees, and then you get to running this race as best you can, because it means life or death. That means we need to get rid of all of our distractions, anything that impedes us from running the race well. That means anything that prevents us from loving God correctly or more, right? And so this can come in so many different formats, both good things and bad things. Distractions that are good are things that we enjoy, like Netflix, YouTube, music, hobbies, friends, family, our phones, our schools. Like, these are good things, gifts. And yet if they hinder my ability to be with God and to love God, man, this needs to go, right? It needs to be laid aside, to toss it aside as if it was worthless, because if you take your faith seriously, then your faith, your relationship with God is worth everything, meaning everything else is secondary. It means I need Him more than I need all these other good things. And then bad things that hinder us from running well, that's sins, right? That's why it says, not only do we lay aside every weight, we also lay aside every sin which clings so closely. These specific sins that we struggle to rid of, and these sins that continue to prevent us from drawing near to God, right? And these sins, it's not just secondary things that we need to make less important. These are things we need to kill. We need to get rid of. Because to sin is to reject God. And that's the very core of sin. That's the very problem of sin. It is a rejection of our Father. And that's why we need to fight these things. We need to fight every day to kill these sinful parts of our own hearts. And so, my friends, I do need to ask you this question. What do you need to lay aside? What do you need to kill? You know, what prevents you from drawing near to God each day? And why are you holding so tightly to these things? And I need to ask myself that question. Every day it's a struggle, because I'm so foolish in my own sinful hearts, both good and bad things. And so the thing is, we need to identify the weights. We need to identify the things that are holding us back. We need to identify our sins, and we need to address these things. And here's the good, I guess the good thing about being part of a church community is that you're not alone in this fight. Your brothers and your sisters around you, they are also fighting the same fight, and they need help just as much as we do. And we need to be accountable to each other. What is holding me down? I need to share that with my brothers and my sisters. You need to do the same. And so in your small groups, I want you guys to take time to identify the weights, identify the sins, and keep each other accountable. What is keeping me from enjoying God, and what needs to go? Okay, let's move on. Second part that the writer of Hebrews points us to is we need to look to Jesus. All right, look at verse 1 again. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. Okay, let's stop there. what is he talking about? Earlier on in Hebrews chapter 11, the writer is talking about all these past figures of the Christian faith, right? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Gideon, right? These famous characters who played such a huge role in the history of Israel, these people who were close to God, right? And he says, this cloud of witnesses, these people who have come before us, look to them, right? Look at their example, and see and learn from them how they ran the race. Right? They also endured hardship and difficulty. If you know their history, you know it wasn't easy for them to follow God. They always came across, people who hated God, enemies of God, and for a lot of them, their own sinful hearts. They acted in sinful ways. And the writer of Hebrews says, remember, we're not the first ones. We are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses, those who've come before us, and they themselves bore witness to how hard it was to follow God. Like, look at their example. They also endured hardship. And so maybe some of you guys are asking, okay, well, if it's so hard to follow God, why would I want to follow God? Great question. Fantastic question. Because not only did they bear witness to how hard it was to follow God, they also bore witness to how great it was to follow God, how awesome it was to be a child of God. They bore witness to the joys of being his child. And so the thing is, even though the cost was great, what was promised as a gift was even greater. Look at chapter 11, verse 39 to 40. And all these, the witnesses, though commended through their faith, they were faithful to God and they were commended for their faith, they did not receive what was promised. Meaning they died before they received the full promises of God. God promises them, something amazing, and yet they didn't receive it yet because they died. Yet, it doesn't end there. The sentence doesn't end there. What happens in verse 4? Since God had provided something better for us, that apart from us they should not be made perfect. What is the writer pointing to? It's Jesus, right? The covenant, the new covenant found in Jesus' blood. He's saying they didn't receive the fullness of the promises of God because it came with Christ Jesus. In Jesus, the fulfillment of God's promises, that is what they are longing for and hoping for, and that's what we get to experience as people who came after Christ. We get to know fully who it is and what it is that God was promising. It is found in his Son, Jesus. And Jesus was that something better. Right? God provided something better. That is his own Son. In other words, if we want to endure, if we want to run this race like the ones who came before us and perhaps even do even better, we need to look to Jesus. We need to look to the something better that was promised. We need to look to Christ. And we see that in verse 2, right? When he says, let us run with endurance, the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, right? Looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. He says, look to the fullness of God's promises, that is Jesus. Look to him. And he describes him as the founder and perfecter of our faith. He's the one who endured the life of mankind, and he went beyond and endured the cross. He took the punishment that was meant for us. Right? He endured both those things. And yet, what do we find to be true about him? Even though he endured the cross, he sits at the right hand of the throne of God. He is victorious over sin and death. He is victorious over the things that crush us. He reigns even after the cross. He endured it all, and he is still victorious. And even more amazing, in verse 3, again he says, consider him. Again, Jesus, look to Jesus, consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. Consider Christ, who endured the hatred of mankind. Look to him, consider him, see what he has endured, so that you will not grow weary or faint-hearted. Look at him. And so, in other words, the answer lies in Jesus. How do we endure? We look to Jesus. How do we endure? We consider Jesus. But what does that mean for us, practically speaking? Right? And I hope you asked that question, right? It means that our eyes and our hearts need to be fixed upon Jesus. It needs to be fully fixed upon Him. Right? Think about this in races. If you ever, ran track or done swimming, I myself was a swimmer in high school. I know I don't look like it, but things happen. But when you're in the middle of a race, what keeps you going? Right? It is, as a runner, you look to the end goal. As a swimmer or anyone who's trying to race, you look at the end goal and you pursue it with everything you have. Right? As I was swimming, good golly, like there are times where every muscle in your body is screaming at you, please stop. Like I'm gonna die. Like I can't take a breath. I'm like trying to do every stroke as fast as I can and glide through that water and kick. And yet every part of me is begging me to stop. And yet what I need to focus on is the end goal. I see the wall right there. I need to reach it so that I can live. Right? And that's what gets me going. If I don't see the wall, I can't swim. I did two things. I tried short distance and long distance. Short distance is a 25 yard pool. It's a short one. And the long distance is double that, 50. Now when I kept swimming in 25 yard pools, and that was easy for me to get into a rhythm, because once I dived in, I could see the other side. But when I tried long distance swimming, my goodness, I dove in, I thought I was in the ocean. I could see nothing but blue all around, some fish swimming by, and I'm like, good golly, where's the end? And it was so hopeless for me. And that's why I told my mom, I ain't gonna do long distance. I can't see the other side, but I will do short distance because I can see the end. For us, we need to know what the end goal is. And for us, the end is the fulfillment of God's promises found in Christ Jesus. Do you have your eyes and your hearts fixed upon Him, my friends? Especially as it's so hard right now. Do you have your eyes fixed upon Him? And perhaps this text helps us in its description of how to look to Him, how to consider Him. Let me give you the definitions of these words, right? In Hebrew, the Greek, looking to Him. In other words, it's just to look at something undistractedly, without any sort of distraction. Right? Consider Him is to think carefully, actively, with effort and precision. It's to be very focused intentionally on something. Right? This isn't your typical like, oh, check mark, I've done my Devo time. Oh, check mark, pray before a meal time. Right? This is like the psalmists who fixate their eyes and hearts upon God. Right? The day and night I meditate upon your words. Right? Your word is like honey upon my lips. Even when the world is crashing down on me, I come to you for help, begging you for more of yourself. Right? It's these people who push aside everything that distracts them and carefully come to God like a deer panting for water to drink in the goodness of God. That's what we're talking about here, to look to Him, to consider Him. It's not, yeah, I did my Devo. This faith of ours is not a religion. Do you understand that? It is a relationship where we need to draw near to Him and to hold Him and be held by Him. It is to look at these words as life itself, as the water for my weary, dry soul. That's what it means to look to Him, to consider Him. It is to be so obsessed about Jesus that every time I have time to think, I can't help but come to Him and say, like, I need you. Remind me of how good you are. Remind me of how much you love me. Remind me of who I am in you. Let that feed my soul. Give me the joy of being in your presence. That's what it means to be a Christian. Right? That means for us today, you need to shut off the things that are on right now. You need to push aside, go away, leave, and distance yourself from the distractions in your house. I know you can't get out very far. Find a place where you can be alone in your house, whether it's outside in the backyard, whether it's in a little corner or in a little closet, whatever it is. Push aside everything. Don't bring your phone in there. Don't bring your laptop, your iPad. Toss that all aside. Go somewhere with just His word. Get on your knees and pray. Come to Him and tell Him who you are, how you're feeling, whether you are feeling great or feeling awful, whether you are crying, whether you're feeling distant. Just come before Him and say, God, this is where I am. I feel lost. I feel hurt. I feel distant. And beg Him, God, turn my eyes upon your Son, the founder and perfecter of our faith. Turn my eyes to your Son who loved me enough to die for me. Turn me to your Son who endured the cross and endured my hatred, and yet still sits victoriously on the throne of God. God, you made a way for me through your Son, and I can endure because you have already done so. This brings us to our final point. You need to know your Father's heart. Look with me at verses 5 and 6. It says, "Have you forgotten the exhortation that addresses you as sons? My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor be weary when reproved by him. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves and chastises every son whom he receives." Right? And this might not be the easiest thing to hear in the midst of suffering. I recognize that, and yet it's the truth that ultimately our hearts need to hear, one way or the other. Because for the children of God, we need to understand that our Father in heaven disciplines the ones whom he loves. He disciplines his children, right? And that's not to say that this virus is some sort of punishment, but what is certain to us, what we do know for certain, is that our struggles, the ways that we are really finding it hard to walk and run this faith, is a result of our Father disciplining us. So that means for Christians, we need to see this difficulty as not a time that's happening outside of God's control, but rather a God who is sovereignly working this situation to sharpen us, to refine us. The trials that we are facing as we wrestle with our faith, what God is doing is actually showing us the sins of our hearts. In this time, he's really opening our eyes to how broken we still are. And that's why in verse 10, the last part, it says this: he disciplines us for our good, that we may share his holiness. In other words, God is refining us through this process, this fire that we are going through. It hurts, it sucks, and yet it's being used by God for our holiness, to strip away the things that are unnecessary and that in fact hurt us. He is sharpening us and making us holy like himself. In the trials, and what's really ironic is, in the midst of trials, our idols are actually what are being revealed the most clearly. And I think I've said this before, but I think it bears repeating. In the midst of drowning, think about it. If you are in the water and you're drowning, you're about to die, you're going to grab onto whatever you believe can save you, right? Whether it's a buoy or a life jacket, you grab onto that, or a piece of wood. Rest in peace, Jack. But when we feel like we're drowning, we grab what we believe can truly save us, and those things are now being revealed to many of us, are they not? All right, think about it this way. When we're in pain, ironically, these very things begin to show their true worth, right? In regular non-COVID days, many of us turn to entertainment to quote-unquote save us, because we come home, we're tired, we've been in school all day, we've been in work all day, and then finally we get some time to rest and something to numb us, to kind of save us from having to deal with reality. And we turn to what? Entertainment. Right? We turn to Netflix and YouTube, and yet what I hear the most from kids nowadays is, "Oh, I'm so bored." Man, you've had a month and a half of as much time as you want with entertainment, whether it's going online to watch a movie or a show, or playing your video games, and yet y'all bored with things so fast, right? These things leave you more bored than before. It doesn't make any sense. We have more time now than we ever have, and yet they're still leaving us wanting more, right? If you think academic success is what can save you, right? If I can show people how smart I am, and look at my grades, my 4.5, and I go to Lowell, and I'm on the Candy Cane Hat Club, like, you think that's gonna save you, and yet, guess what, guys? It's pass fail, or everybody gets A's, or our teachers have no idea how to give us a grade that actually shows us our achievements, and everyone's like, "Yeah, I got an A too." Well, at that point, what's your grade worth? Not much. It's kind of like a participation award. You can't even study for your AP test because now it's all online and you have 45 minutes to do it, and it's like, it leaves you even more uncertain of how your academic achievement will save you. How about that cute guy? If you think, "Oh, if only I have that person, if he cares for me, I'm okay, even in COVID." Well, no, that cute guy's too busy being bored at Minecraft to pay you any attention right now. If you think family can save you, you're stuck with them 24/7. You know now how annoyed you can get with your mom and how annoyed she can get with you. These things are all good things, and yet they can't save us. We've grabbed onto them for the last month and a half, and yet look at where they've led us. Look at how empty we feel. Why do we feel like we're still drowning and sinking for some of us? Because everything is now being proven to be unable to hold us fast. And this is not a bad thing, ironically. The fact that we're feeling this is not bad because it's showing us how worthless these things are, and it's showing us how much more we need, who we need, right? It's pointing us to someone greater. And it's a good thing because our God is not a cruel God. He's not disciplining us. He's not disciplining us to be cruel and mean, but he's rather disciplining us to love us, to save us. Right? He shows us how worthless our idols are in order to wake us up and to save us. Right? Could it be that our God disciplines us in order to love us? Look at verse 6. What did it say? For the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and he chastises every son whom he receives. He is basically saying, stop turning to worthless things. Stop turning to things that cannot save you, and come to me if you are weary. If you are needing help, come to me. I can save you. I can hold you fast when you are drowning. I can be your life preserver. I am able, and I've already proved that with my son. Right? When I was a kid, my parents smacked me because I was being stupid. Right? They didn't smack me because they hated me. They smacked me because I was doing something that would hurt myself and hurt others, and they're saying, don't do that. Right? Right now, short term, you might feel some pain, but I'm going to discipline you so that later on you don't keep hurting yourself. Right? And in the same way, our dad, our Heavenly Father, is disciplining us right now so that we do not hurt in the long run. Right? Look at verse 11. What does it say? For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant. Yeah, we know that. We know that to be true. But later, it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. Yes, it hurts now. Yes, as our Father disciplines us and shows us the worthlessness of our idols. Yes, it hurts, and it's supposed to. It's part of the sanctification process. It's part of our God showing us, guys, you're turning the wrong way. And when we turn back to him, when we turn to the one who can actually save, what we find is that he refines us so that we are holy and righteous like him. He's saying, turn to me, come to me. I am able to save you. I am able to love you perfectly. And so he disciplines those whom he loves. And so that's my encouragement to you, my challenge to you right now. You need to know your Father's heart. I know it's hard to hear that in the midst of suffering. That's why we need to be, that's why we've been trying to train you. And when we want to train you right now is to realize your Father disciplines whom he loves. And if you are a child of God, if you are a son or a daughter of his, he loves you enough to discipline you. If you're going through pain right now, it's because he loves you. If you're going through suffering, it's because he wants to tear away the things that are killing us, and he wants you to be holy like him. He wants you to know the true joy of being one of his own. And friend, I don't want to make light of what you're going through. I know it's hard, but look to Christ. Look to him who has already endured the cross. Yes, it's difficult, but we will never have to do that. We will never have to endure the cross because he has already done that for us. And that's the hope of the gospel. Love you all.